Old Iron is the fifth episode of the second season of Thomas and Friends, and this is really delightful. It's got a really important message in it. It's very well filmed. There was one bit that made me laugh because it was very well done, but there was just something about the way it looked that amused me, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But James is making fun of Edward because he's Old Iron and he thinks he's a weaker train, and James is just being quite nasty, which is hard for me to see because growing up, James was my favourite, and I still have a soft spot for James, so I don't like to think of James as being a nasty train. But I'd say pretty much all of the trains have episodes where they're displaying really negative character traits. So it's about time we had one from James. There might have been another one from James, but certainly it's not that frequent. But in this one, he's making fun of Edward, and something happens to James, and it might be the case that only Edward is the one who can help him. And obviously, the lesson there is that you shouldn't make fun of other people or call them weak because you never know when you might need them and you never know what they're capable of. And that's obviously a really important message. And it's not the first time Thomas and Friends addresses why you shouldn't make fun of other people. Because the trains do often make fun of each other, and sometimes it's, in good humour, but often, like James, it's just whinging and bickering and gossiping for the sake of it. And the episode does a very good job of saying, don't do this. And I think James displayed a good character when it happened and he realised he was in the wrong. So credit to James where it's due. As I said, it is beautifully shot. We get a lot of close-ups, and the facial expressions from James in this are just amazing. One of my favourite things about Thomas, watching it as an adult, is that I have a great appreciation for the attention to detail. And the amount of times they change the faces of the trains is incredible. I'd love to know how many different faces there were. But James had an angry face on a lot. And I just thought it was so delightful. But the bit that I particularly loved is when the driver is unwell, which sounds horrible, but we get a close up of this little driver, this little figure, and they've made him look sick. He looks sickly and like sweaty, and like his skin's hot and clammy, and they did such a good job of it. And it's just little things like that that really make me smile with this, because they really put a lot of attention to detail in, and it really makes it enjoyable. But there was also just something about this little figure, this little driver's expression, and how clammy his, I was going to say plastic skin looked. I'm not entirely sure what the characters are actually made of. It could be clay. If anybody knows what the Thomas human characters are made of, please feel free to let me know. But either way, they did a remarkable job with it, and watching this as an adult, I have a lot of appreciation for the quality. Watching it as a child, I would have learned some important lessons about how to treat other people. Definitely, Old Iron is a really thoroughly enjoyable episode.